Yep. I finally watched The Human Centipede 2, the full sequence. Been wanting to see this movie for so long. It was so hard to find, but I just came back from Poland and yeah, I finally found it. And well, you know, like I'm a huge movie fan, and I always like to have like one movie to look forward to. You know, for the year, I guess, or whatever. For the past 7 years, it's been the Saw films. But now that the Saw series has ended for now, I was kind of like, what now? So I was like, oh, why not the Human Centipede 2, the full sequence? So I was kind of like, why not? I knew that was coming out, so I was kind of like, sure, why not? I was kind of interested in it anyways beforehand, but I was kind of looking forward to this. Yeah. I guess this is a fun fact worth mentioning. For those of you who don't know, this movie was originally banned in the UK. The sexual violence pushed the BBFC over the edge, I guess. So it was banned in the UK. But now it's going to be released. The ban has been lifted and it's going to be released in the UK. With 32 cuts made though. And over 2 minutes and 40 seconds have been cut from the UK release. So kinda, I believe this happened to the original My Bloody Valentine. Like that was eventually released in the uncut version, I think, in the UK. But for now, like this film, I'm guessing this film will eventually be released in its uncut version eventually. But for now, it's being cut with 32 cuts. Okay, so I guess I'll offer my thoughts on the first film, The Human Centipede, the first sequence. And for those of you who have been living under a rock for the past 2 years, I think The Human Centipede was made in 2009. But like everybody knows the plot for this movie now. And for those of you who haven't, allow me to explain. So, in the movie, Dr. Heiter, a retired yet very experienced German surgeon, he's a bit crazy and he wants to create a human centipede. So he kidnaps 3 tourists and he's going to use the 3 tourists to create a human centipede. And what the human centipede is, it's basically he sews the 3 people ass to mouth. So if you picture that in your head, you have like a chain of people. So the shit is like, it's going to pass through like each one of them. So that's basically what the human centipede is. It's like a chain of people sewn together, ass to mouth. So that's what he does. He creates this human centipede out of the 3 tourists. And there you go, that's the movie. It's a really simple plot. And yeah, that's it. That's the plot. He just sews these 3 people together and there you go. That's the movie. Of course, it's what happens to the centipede, I guess, is, where the movie is going. The aim of the movie, for you to find out what's going to happen to the Doctor and the human centipede. So I did like the first movie. I did really enjoy it. When I first heard about it, I was kind of disturbed by it. Like, I thought I had been like desensitized to everything, but that really did make me. When I watched the trailer, I was kind of freaked out by it. I did think that was pretty sick. And so I had to watch the movie obviously. So when I did watch the movie, a lot like every single other person who's ever watched it in the world, I don't know, maybe I lived up to some people's expectations, but I'm with the majority. Or my opinion is the typical opinion that it sounded really sick, but when I watched it, it just wasn't that bad. There's barely any blood in it, and there's literally no shit in it at all. Like literally none at all. The blood, there's 1 or 2 more scenes with a tiny bit of blood, but it's a psychological horror pretty much. I mean, you don't even see the surgery, you just see like, I haven't seen the human centipede for a while, but if I recall, if my memory is right, all you see is Dr. Heiter peel a bit of skin back off someone, but you don't see him cutting open anyone's knees or bashing anyone's teeth in. It's nothing like that. It's just no blood, it's just a psychological horror, nowhere near as bad as you expect. And after I watched it, I was just like, that wasn't so bad. So I wasn't disgusted by the idea anymore, I was desensitized to it. There you go. And I did like the movie anyway. Like, Dr. Heiter was great. He's one like, I really like him. He was a great villain. He's played by Dieter Laser, or Dieter Laser. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce his name, but the actor who played him was fantastic. I thought he's just awesome. He's one of my favorite. I would say he's one of my favorite villains in a movie ever. Like, he's got to be up there with Jigsaw, the Joker, and Jason. He's a lot of fun to watch. Dr. Hyde, he's just, the movie alone, for Dr. Hyde alone, the movie is worth watching just to see him. Like, when I was watching, when you hear about it, it's like the idea of the human centipede. The centipede itself sounds really interesting, and that's obviously why like we would watch it, is like what makes you interested in it. That's what made me interested in watching it. But when I actually go around to watching it, it's kind of like, forget about the centipede itself. Dr. Hyder is the star of the show. Dr. Hyder steals everything. He's just so much fun to watch. He's one of my favourite villains. I know a lot of people think he was a really lazy and just didn't really find him all that good. They just thought he's a lazy villain to write, I guess. They just felt as if he's a one-dimensional character, and he's just crazy, stereotypically crazy. I was like, so, just so what, he's fun to watch. Besides, Michael Myers, whatever, maybe he's a bad example. I mean, I'm saying, like, a lot of people like to argue that it's scarier when the villains, the villain of a movie doesn't have a motive. A lot of people like to argue that. Personally, I just don't give a shit, whatever. Like, Michael Myers, he doesn't really have a motive. I mean, he just wants to kill his family. Yeah, exactly, he doesn't have a motive. He just he kills his sister when he's like 8 or 6 years old. Why? It's never explained. He just kills her. So, Michael Myers, I'm just using him as an example because he's like a really loved villain or horror icon, I guess. Everybody, a lot of people love him, so I'm just saying, just whatever. You don't need a motive. Like, there's nothing wrong with just having a crazy guy doing crazy stuff. They're fun to watch. So I found Dr. Hyder really entertaining, and some people like to argue it's scarier when they don't have a motive anyway, so whatever, I loved him. I thought he was a great villain, really fun to watch. And another thing I will say about the Human Centipede 1, the first film, it's very well shot. The director, Tom Six, knows where to point the camera. It is a well shot film. How he directed the actors is another thing. I didn't think the actors were too good. I mean, Dieter Laser was amazing, but the actors, they were okay, I guess. So I guess you can say he's good. He may not be good at directing the actors, or maybe the actors themselves weren't too good. But he knows where to point the camera. You can give him that. Like, it is a well shot film. There's no denying that. I strongly feel that it was a well shot film. Maybe there's some people who don't. Opinions, but I think it was a well shot film. I really thought it was, well shot. I did also thought the ending was kind of intense. The chase scene at the end was pretty intense, I think, in my opinion. I thought it was pretty suspenseful. And nothing really else to say about that. It was pretty funny in some parts, but it was an intentional black comedy. Like that chicken impression that Dr. Hyder does. I didn't even remember that from the film. Like, when I watched the film, it's like he does the chicken impression, but that is pretty funny. I'm not quite sure if a lot of people remember that scene. Personally, I didn't. But then one of my friends who had seen the movie told one of my other friends who didn't see the movie, he told him to watch that scene on YouTube. And then I was like, what are you talking about? Chicken impression? What the hell are you talking about? I didn't even remember that, so I typed that into YouTube and watched it. I was like, oh right, I like that scene. I just entirely forgot about that scene, but it was pretty funny. I don't even understand how I missed that scene, because it comes right before the shit scene, the famous scene. One of the famous scenes in the movie, I guess. But yeah, it was a fun movie, and I do understand why a lot of people don't like it. Like, the characters made stupid decisions, like, just flat out, just dumb decisions. Like, oh my god, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But the decisions the characters made, they were really, really dumb. Like, you know what scene in particular I'm talking about. It's like, a girl at one point, she has an opportunity to escape. Like she can literally run and like, you know, run for help. But instead she runs back into Dr. Hyder's house. She goes down the basement and begins dragging her unconscious friend through the house, up the stairs, out the house and across the garden, hoping to get help. But it's like, yeah, sure, it's actually got to leave your friend behind unconscious in there. But, you know, just hope you get back with the police before he converts your friend into a part of the Centipede. It's just like, because like if you haven't seen the movie, she just goes back, you know, to get her friend when she clearly could have run for help. Instead she tries to drag her friend to help instead of going to get help, you know, and then coming back. Like stuff like that, it's just so stupid, some of the things the characters do. And something else I wanted to mention, I can't remember. Maybe I'll come back to me, but yeah. Oh yeah, the plot, like, I know a lot of people found the movie really boring. I do understand where they're coming from. Like, not much happens in the movie. Like crazy guy creates human centipede. Then the other half of the movie is the human centipede crawling about. Like, he trains the centipede to fetch his newspaper and stuff. And yeah, that, you know, it's just a centipede. It just crawls about. It just crawls around this house for a while. That's the movie pretty much. I do understand why some people find it really boring. Like, you know, I do understand where people are coming from, but I guess it's just down to whether or not you're interested in the movie or not. Like, movies, like, I personally hate Paranormal Activity. I really, really despise those movies. But it does have its fan base, I'll give it that. Like, a lot of people do like those movies, but like the plot of the Human Centipede is more complex than the plot for Paranormal Activity. Like, Paranormal Activity, or at least the first film, it's just a couple being haunted by a spirit or a demon or whatever. That's the movie. And the plot of the Human Centipede is more like in depth and like more complicated than the plot of Paranormal Activity. Like, it has more things going on. So, you know, just because a movie has a simple plot doesn't make it a bad movie. It's just down to whether or not you're interested in the plot. So I was, you know, because I was interested in the plot, it held my attention. But I do understand where people are coming from by saying it's a boring movie. But saying it's a boring movie because it's a simple, and this plot is too simple, that's just a dumb statement, I think, to make. Like, a movie isn't bad because it has a simple plot. You might think it's bad because you're not interested in the plot. That's the way I see it. So that's my thoughts on the first film. I did really like it. I thought it was a great film. Well, you know, it wasn't amazing. It had its flaws. But I did enjoy it. Especially Dr. Hyder. He was awesome. So the Human Centipede 2, the full sequence, finally got around to watching it. And for those of you, the plot, I thought is, at first, when I first heard about the plot, I was kind of like, oh, because the first film leaves a few unanswered questions open, so it's like fun to like, you know, discuss what could possibly happen for the sequel and where the sequel could go. And because of the way, because of what the plot is for the second film, any unanswered questions for the first film do not matter. Any unanswered questions for the first film that the first film left open, it's just, they don't matter anymore because of the plot of the second film. And so for those of you who don't know this, the plot of the second film, for the second film, we revolve around a man called Martin. It's like this short, chubby guy. He's mentally handicapped, and he works the night shifts as a security guard at a car park. And yeah, so we revolve around Martin, and the universe of the Human Centipede 2. It takes place in a universe where the Human Centipede 1 is just a film. So it's a movie within a movie. The first film is just a film within the second film's universe. So it's kind of like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is the sixth sequel, but the 7th in the series of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So, you know, it's like New Nightmare or like the Blair Witch Project 2. At first I didn't really like the idea because it throws any unanswered questions out the window. Like they are irrelevant now because it's like no direct continuation of the film. But as you know, as they start releasing more information about it, like, you know, the trailer and stuff, I did start liking the idea. And, you know, I'm fine with the idea now. I don't mind. I do like the idea. It's fine, you know. At first I was kind of, I was kind of disappointed, but with the angle they were going for, but I was fine with it in the end, and I went in hoping to like it. So, oh yeah, for those of you who haven't figured this out yet, Martin, he's obsessed with the first film. Like, he's a raging fan of it. He loves it. Like, he loves it so much. He's obsessed with it to the point where he has a scrapbook of it, and it's filled with like pictures from the movie, like glued into the scrapbook. He even has his own like sketches of how to create his own human centipede, and like, so he has the scrapbook, and when he sits there as a security guard at the car park in his office, by here he has like the monitor showing all of the footage of the security cameras for the car park. So by here he has the monitor showing the footage of the security cameras. So there's the monitor, and then right by here on his desk he has his laptop, which is playing the human centipede over and over and over and over again. Like, I just think it's pretty funny just to think, and it's funny to actually watch someone obsess over the first film. Just to think somebody could obsess over the first film so much, I just think that's pretty funny. It's like, it's to the point, like, I thought it was pretty funny at this one point. Like, it reaches the ending credits of the first film. Like, the first film ends, the credits are rolling. Martin, he leans over to his laptop. He just goes, he hits the rewind button, and it just, the film rewinds to the start, and then as soon as we get to the beginning again, it just plays, and Martin is just sitting there watching it again. Like, when how people always say stuff like, oh, I love this film so much, I watch it over and over again, and like, obviously they literally don't mean that, and like, sure, maybe they watched it a lot, but like, not literally over and over again for their whole entire life or anything. But Martin is like, that's exactly what he does, literally. Like, as soon as the credits come up, he hits rewind and just watches again, like, literally, and he does it non-stop throughout this whole entire shift at the car park. It's pretty funny just to watch, and to think somebody would do that. I did like that. I'm sure Tom Six, I'm sure that's supposed to be like supposed to be funny. Just the thought of somebody actually doing that for the human centipede. That's great. Okay, what else to talk about? I do have a lot to talk about. I'm just thinking, where should I begin here? It's shot in black and white, for those of you who don't know. First film was in colour. This one's in black and white, obviously. Like I said, I did like it. Like, I wasn't one of those people who were pissed off and disappointed that I was in black and white, because I know a lot of people were complaining about that. It's just like, well, it's just colour. It did add to the movie. I mean, that's another section I want to get into a bit later, but to kind of merge the two topics together slightly, I didn't find it disturbing in the slightest or anything like that. I mean, I'll get to that later, but even though I didn't find it disturbing or disgusting or anything, you can tell the film is a lot more effective in black and white. I mean, if you saw it in colour, it wouldn't be anywhere near as disgusting or effective as it is now in black and white. Because it's in black and white, it just makes it seem really gritty, like really dirty, and just really a lot more effective. Black and white does help. It does add to the film. It is a pro, I will say. Like, even though I didn't find it disgusting, I could tell it would make it more disgusting to somebody who would be disturbed by it. And like, if you've been desensitized like I have to gore and violence, this movie, you'll have no problem watching this movie. There won't be any scenes that will make you cringe, unless you have one, like a specific thing that makes you cringe, like things to do with teeth or knees. You'll be fine. You're not going to cringe or anything. If you've been desensitized, you'll be fine. You'll watch the film, no problem. I was kind of disappointed by the level of gore. I was expecting a lot more. Like, at this one point, Martin bashes open someone's face open, like, when I say with a crowbar, that's like his weapon of choice. Like, when I say he bashes their head open, he literally bashes the head open. Like, the top half of the head is literally just spread out everywhere. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Their head is literally like just ripped apart by the crowbar. But the thing is, you don't see it happening. It just happens off screen, and you see the blood splatter. And I was just, because this film is supposed to be really gory, I was just expecting to see it. Like, you do see it afterwards, the aftermath of the head, just sprayed everywhere. But you don't actually see Martin hitting the head open with the crowbar. However, of course, I want to remind you all, I watched the cut version. 32 cuts have been made. 2 minutes and over 40 seconds in total have been removed. So I don't know, maybe in the uncut version you do see the head being bashed open. But I was just disappointed by the cut version. So maybe in the uncut version you do see the head getting bashed open, but I didn't in the cut version. So there you go. Oh yeah, and of course the two famous scenes which the BBFC described. And so there's one scene where, I'm sure you all heard about it by now. For those of you who haven't, Martin wraps sandpaper around his penis and he masturbates with it. So that scene is in the movie. Like, you see him tear like a strip of the sandpaper off, but then he starts masturbating with it. But the thing is, the camera, like, what we see is just his face. Like, you just see like his facial expressions as he's masturbating. You don't see you don't see him like masturbating with it at all. However, I am aware of the fact you do see the masturbation in the uncut version. I am aware of that. Like, they cut that out entirely for the cut version. You just see his facial expressions as he's doing it. I am aware though, in the uncut version you do see it, everything. Apparently you see it in like, a close up, like, in full graphic detail. So props for Tom Six for doing that scene, I guess. Other thing. Oh yeah, the other famous scene which everybody knows about. Martin wraps Bob, again with the genital mutilations. He wraps barbed wire around his penis and then he rapes the girl at the back of the Centipede. So that's another scene. While the sandpaper masturbation, it actually did happen in the movie. You just didn't see it. It doesn't even happen in the cut version. Like, it's not as if it happens off screen and you just see the characters' reactions. It literally does not happen whatsoever in the movie. Like, there's no barbed wire in the movie whatsoever. So yeah, so there you go. I didn't see that in the cut version, so I can't even like say, because I haven't even heard anybody talk about it. It certainly does happen in the uncut version, but I haven't heard anybody like fully describe the scene, like whether or not there's any close-ups or anything. But there you go. I have no idea how graphic or gory that scene is, because obviously I haven't seen it. But yeah, that scene was cut. Those two scenes were like cut out or shredded in the version I watched. But like, other thing, yeah, a lot of people found this boring. I know one of the common complaints about this movie was that, because Martin. Oh yeah, that's another thing. In the first film, Dr. Heiter sews 3 people together, so there's only 3 people in the Centipede. In this film, Martin plans on making a 12-person Centipede. So there you go. You have 12 people sewn together. So yeah, and the thing is, you see him kidnap every single person as well. Like, all 12 people you see Martin kidnap. And I know a lot of people found that boring, watching Martin do that, because like, he just for the most part, he like shoots them in the kneecap with a foot, and then he just bops them on the head with a crowbar. That's it. Then he drives them off to the warehouse. I know a lot of people found that boring, because like, you see him do that to all 12 people, but I didn't mind it. It was fine, And by the way, Martin, he does kidnap 12 people, but while kidnapping 12 people, he does get, some other people get in the way, and he just does end up killing quite a lot of people. Like, the body count for this movie is actually pretty high. Martin does kill quite a lot of people while kidnapping, the members of the Centipede. So yeah, that was, I didn't really find it too boring. I totally understand why some people would, but I didn't. It was fine. I didn't mind. Like, it's not as if the situation is exactly the same. Like, when I heard people complaining about it, I imagined that Martin would literally walk up to 12 people in the car park and just hit them on the head, and there you go. Like, the situations the characters are in when Martin kidnaps them are different. Like, you know, two people. There's a few people in the car park. He just walks up to them, hits them on the head. You know, then he drags them off. He shoots some girl in the leg. She's like limping off into the distance and up a staircase. And like Martin has to chase after her. He kidnaps his neighbour. He like bangs on the ceiling to get his attention, then kidnaps him. Like the situations that they are in for him to get to them, they're kind of different if you understand what I'm saying. And there was like enough variety, if you can call it that. They were different enough for me to like not get bored by it. But it is a valid complaint. I do understand why some people would get bored by it. But personally, I didn't mind. It was fine, you know. I was fine. You know, I was really interested in the movie anyway. Like, I really wanted to see it. So I guess I was more likely not to get bored by it anyway, because I was like I so wanted to see this movie so badly. But yeah, a lot of people will and have gotten bored by that part, and I don't blame them. I didn't mind it though. Okay, let's talk about the villain here, Martin, because Dr. Hyder, he was such a big part. Well, you know, he was he was like everybody's favourite part about the first film, or at least the majority seemed to think he was the best part about the first film. And I totally agree. He was so fun to watch. So Tom Six was constantly bragging about in his interviews and in the teaser trailer, how sick and how sick the new villain was going to be compared to Dr. Hyder. So Martin, he constantly bragged about how sick and more psychopathic Martin was going to be when compared to Dr. Hyder. And as a character, Martin certainly is more crazy than Dr. Hyder, that's for sure. Like, he's a lot more unhinged and a lot more messed up in the head. That's for sure. Like, but I did like Martin as a villain. He was, I had fun watching him. I'm not trying to badmouth him. Like, I will say Dr. Hyder was more fun to watch, but Martin is still a great villain. He is fun to watch, He's played by Lawrence Harvey. He's like a new actor, and I believe this is the first film he has ever been in. But he is a great actor, and he was fun to watch. Although I prefer Dr. Hyder, but Martin was still. I'm not trying to badmouth Martin here. Martin was a great villain, and he is fun to watch. And Lawrence Harvey is a great actor, because Martin doesn't speak throughout the whole entire movie. He doesn't say a single word throughout the whole entire movie. All he does is like little grunts or laughs or squeals or screams. That's all he does. And his facial. So his action. So Lawrence Harvey, the actor, he has to convey all of these emotions and shit through facial expressions or actions or like squeals or grunts or screams and laughs. And he does a fantastic job. Like, Lawrence Harvey is a good actor. Like, you might hate the movie, but I think even those who hate the movie, I'm not assuming this, because I've read a lot of reviews and a lot of people hated the movie. But even though the majority that hated the movie all seem to agree that Lawrence Harvey is a great actor. He does do a good job, and I really hope Lawrence Harvey gets more roles in a lot more films after this, because the man has talent. I think he did really good. And about the villain, to be honest, I felt really bad for him. Like, he, for starters, is a mentally handicapped guy, and he's kind of chubby, and not only that, like, he was sexually abused by his father. His mother wants to kill herself and him. Like, she constantly fantasizes about killing Martin and herself. Everybody Martin comes into contact with just shits all over him. Everybody that Martin comes into contact with just abuses him, physically, mentally. Like, even the doctor that's seeing Martin wants to molest him. It's just, I just felt so bad for him. I know it's really cliche to have a chubby guy or a mentally handicapped guy. You might be thinking it's an easy ticket to make you feel sorry for the character, but if you think that, whatever, because I did feel sorry for him. Like, at one point his mother finds Martin's scrapbook, you know, the scrapbook of the Centipede film, you know, with all the pictures and sketches, and you know, she's reading through it, like shouting at him and screaming at him, you know. Martin's just kind of like, you know, he's like, you know, he's standing back, like, you know, I just felt so bad for him, like she's like tearing up his scrapbook, screaming at him, and when she storms off and has finished like ripping up the whole entire scrapbook, like Martin's kind of like stumbling towards like the ripped up pieces of scrapbook. He's like, you know, he's looking at the pages, trying to piece everything back together. You know, he's like crying over it. You know, he's so sad. He's just like crying over the scrapbook and everything. It's like his life's work has just been destroyed. And you know, then he finds like a torn up piece of Dr. Heiter's face, and he kind of like, he holds it up and kind of just holds it close to him and starts crying into it. I just felt so bad for him, like, oh my god, like, the Centipede, like, this is no spoiler, obviously he succeeds in creating the human centipede. When he's created the human centipede, he like puts a bowl of, you know, like Dr. Heiter did, he has like a dog bowl, puts it down, fills it up with some food, like he's kind of like, he looks at, it's almost as if he's sympathetic towards the person at the front of the centipede, and he's like, he holds it to her, and she's kind of just like, he looks really kind of sad, as if, like, it looks like he thinks he's doing her a favour by giving her food. Because like, that's another thing about the Martin character. I do think he's a lot more interesting than Dr. Heiter. He does have more to him than Dr. Heiter, you know. Like, he thinks he's just creating a human, he is just creating the centipede. Like, his life doesn't have any meaning aside from creating the centipede. Like, I guess, you know, the film is like the only outlet he has, you know, like, he's, you know, if you like just watch the interviews with Lawrence Harvey, he does describe the Martin character really well, of, you know, it's like how Martin, he kind of sees Dr. Heiter as the father, his father, and he wants to do him proud by creating the centipede, and he doesn't really think anybody he kidnaps should have a say in whether or not they want to be in the centipede. Like, he doesn't really even know why he's creating the centipede. It's like he loves the film, so he wants to try and get as close to the film as possible by creating the centipede. So it's kind of like, I felt bad for him, because it's just, he doesn't even know why he's creating the centipede, and he doesn't really understand that it's wrong, and what he is doing is like breaking the law, and it's bad, and like people do not want to be part of the centipede. Like, it's not as if he even understands that. He's just doing it because it's his way of getting closer to the film, and I kind of felt bad for him in that, because of that. Even once he's created the centipede and he's done all these horrible things, like, it's just the look on his face when he tries to give the girl at the front some food, and then she just like, because she's part of the centipede, and she's pissed off at Martin. She just grabs the bowl and just chucks it at the wall like that. That was a pretty good throw, but she just throws it at the wall, the food, the dog bowl, and Martin's just like kind of kneeling by her, and he looks so sad because he's like offered her food. He thinks her being in the centipede is what she wanted, and he's doing her honour or making her proud by putting her into the centipede, and he's just like kind of kneeling over her, like thinking he's doing something good by giving her food. And I'm pretty sure he was smiling when he gave her the food. So he's kind of like, you know, he's happy, he's doing her a good thing, he's proud of himself for doing it for her. But she just throws it at the wall and is pissed off at him, and he looks so sad by her when she, you know, he looks so sad when she throws it away. He just looks so disappointed. I just felt bad for him. You know, you might be saying it's really cliche to have this chubby guy and shit, you know, mentally handicapped guy, but I did feel bad for him, whatever. I did feel sympathetic towards him, and I'm sure Tom Six wanted us to be sympathetic towards him as well. I know a lot of people didn't, well, you know, I know a lot of people seem to like Martin, but there's been a few which don't really like him though. I mean, like, they were more wanting Dr. Heiter to return. Like, I know a lot of people were pissed off because Dr. Heiter didn't return, and I was kind of disappointed as well. But, you know, I was willing to give the new guy a chance, Martin, the new villain, because when Tom Six said it wouldn't be the same villain, it would be a new villain, I was disappointed. I know a lot of people were, but I just accepted the fact, and I didn't mind. It's fine. Like, Martin, as long as you give Martin a chance, you should have fun with the character. Just accept the fact that Dr. Heiter is not in this film. Dr. Heiter is gone. You've got a new kid on the block. You've got a new villain. So if you just accept that fact and you're willing to give the new villain a chance, you should have fun with Martin. I did like him, and I was sympathetic towards him. I did feel bad for him. It was a pretty depressing film, actually. I did. It was pretty depressing. Yeah, I did feel bad for him. About the contrast, I guess, because like in the first film, Dr. Heiter, although he's a retired surgeon, the man knew what he was doing. It's kind of like, what's worse than a evil psychopathic surgeon making you part of a centipede? The answer: a mentally handicapped person making you part of a human centipede. Because Dr. Heiter, although retired, he knew what he was doing. He was a skilled surgeon. He knew where to make the cuts. He had the tools, proper surgical tools. He had, everyone was unconscious. He had everyone under anesthetic, so no pain. And everybody was sewn together really neatly. It's really sterile. Everyone was sewn together really neatly. There's no dripping blood or anything. But with Martin, clearly, this guy's mentally handicapped. He's just following what Dr. Heiter says in the film. The whole speech, Dr. Heiter goes we will begin by cutting the ligaments of the knee, so leg extension will no longer be possible. When he says, when Heiter says that, Martin is just watching the film and just doing what Dr. Heiter is saying, because clearly he's mentally handicapped, so he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just trying to follow the film as best as he can to sew these 12 people together. Well, I'm not going to spoil that part, but he plans on making 12 people together. Something goes wrong, I'm not going to say what. Anyway, yeah, so what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the contrast. So he's mentally handicapped, so he doesn't have much idea what he's doing. Not that any normal person would, unless they were a trained surgeon anyway. It's so he doesn't have the proper tools. He uses stuff like crappy little household scissors to to cut the tendons of the knee. He just slices open the knee, then pulls out the tendon and just cuts it with the scissors. He has really weak equipment. While in the first film they were stitched together and they were bandaged together. In this film he just uses he stitches them together. No, not stitches, sorry. He uses a staple gun. He just staples them together, and then he just uses duct tape to to make the connection more stronger, I guess. And obviously he does a pretty shitty job when he's doing the surgery and bashing people's teeth out with hammers and stuff, and obviously they're not under anesthetic. Some of them are unconscious when he does the surgery, some of them aren't, so they're constantly screaming in pain when he's doing it. So it's obviously they're trying to up the ante to make it more disturbing, so that's kind of how they did it. And obviously once the centipede has been created, I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to think about what I should discuss next. I have a few topics to discuss about it. I already mentioned the black and white being gritty. Another thing, the first film was well shot, and so is this. I do think this is well shot. Tom Six knows where to point the camera. And there was this one shot in particular after Martin has shot someone in the head. I just like the shot. The shot is kind of slanted, but it's also kind of behind Martin's hand when he points at the guy's head and blows his head off. But I did kind of like the way I don't know. I like the shot. I actually kind of paused it. I was like, whoa, that looks pretty cool. Then I resumed and just kept watching it. I did like that. It is a well shot film, that's for sure. And it's handheld as well for the most part. I wouldn't be surprised if every single shot in the film was handheld. Obviously Tom Six is trying to do the contrast as well. While the first film was a really clean, sterile environment, and there was no gore or blood or shit whatsoever. And it's kind of I'm not quite sure. Was the opposite to handheld, steady cam? I'm not quite sure what you say. The cameras on dollies, I guess, for the first film, so they're all steady. And then for the second film, it's all shaky cam, black and white, so it's gritty. You know, most of the Dr. Hyde's house was clean. Martin's like warehouse and his house, they're just like really, really shitty, cheap places, you know. So, you know, you do get like a contrast like that. And if you like the first, I know a lot of people like the first film because of the I know, I never really understood why people even bother trying to use this as an argument for a film. Like, to me, it doesn't really make sense. Like, even like people use it for the Saw films as well, and I'm just like, that doesn't make like, what I'm saying is like the psychological argument with psychological horror. Well, yeah, sure, you might find the psychological horror more disturbing than, you know, visual horror. Yeah, like, yeah, sure, that's fine. If you think that, good for you. Whatever. Like, but that doesn't make a film a better film. It might make it more disturbing. It doesn't affect the story or the plot in any way. It's like the first Saw film, like a lot of people are like hated the sequels because they showed so much blood, but it's like, it's the same film, so why would you possibly hate it because of the blood? Like, it's not focused on the, like, say for the first Saw film, like, you saw a lot more of the traps, like the man getting cut up in the razor wire maze. You saw the man burning to death. You saw Amanda cutting open Donnie's stomach and sifting through his intestines a lot more. You saw Singh's head get blown off by the shotgun. You see Doctor going and cutting off his foot entirely. Even if you did see all that, what would be the difference? It's the same story, it's the same plot, and at the end of the day, isn't that what matters? It's like, sure, you might find psychological horror more disturbing, good for you, nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't make it a better film. It just makes it more disturbing. The story and the plot is exactly the same. So it's the same with the Human Centipede 2. Like, you might find the story-wise, you might find the Human Centipede 2 rather boring. But I'm saying, like, because I know a lot of reviewers did say this, they hated the second film purely because they showed so much blood and gore. Because, like, while the first film shied away from all the gore, like, and Tom Six obviously did it on purpose to make it a psychological horror. For the second film, he shows a lot of stuff, but like a lot of people hated it, claimed to hate it because of that. But I don't really understand why you would hate it because of that. It's the same story, it's the same plot. You know, it's just that there's a few shots where you see blood. So, you know, I hate it when people use that like little argument in their reviews. I don't know, personally, it just doesn't make sense. So, if you're one of those people, if you still use that kind of argument, whatever, just to warn you, this film does show a lot of blood and gore. So, and if you love the film because it's first film because it's a psychological horror, I don't know why some people do that, but if you think that, just to warn you, the second film shows a lot of gore and blood. So, for some reason, some people, that affects their enjoyment of the film. So, if you're one of those people, there you go. The second film shows a lot of blood and gore. So, you know, think about that if you want. Other things. Yeah, I already said that the film wasn't as gory as I thought it was going to be. Once again, although, you know, I watched the cut version. Like, doing the surgery, it didn't last long. Like, it's like a 5-minute scene, and I was expecting it to go on a lot longer. And considering only 2 minutes and over 40 seconds was cut out of the film, I can't really see the surgery being much longer. Like, you see Martin bash like 2 people's teeth in, I think, only 2 people. Like, oh, and by the way, the special effect on him bashing the teeth in was pretty good. You know, like, it does look pretty real when he's bashing the teeth out with the hammer. That looks good. And like, you see him cutting open the knees. 2 knees, I think you see him cutting into. That's a pretty cool effect as well. You know, that looks pretty realistic. That's done well. But the thing is, you don't see much of the surgery. Like, you see him cutting open the person's mouth and their ass and like stapling them together, kind of. But the camera's kind of angled at the way where you don't really see it much. So, you know, you don't really see much, even though they kind of show you a bit more, but like not to the extent that you're expecting when Tom Six says that you see everything in the film. It's just like, it's not as gory as you're expecting. And I'm pretty sure I already mentioned, if you've been desensitized to gore and violence, you'll have no problem with this film. It won't bother you. And this film, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be humorous as well. And like, some pretty funny stuff happens towards the third act once Martin has created the Centipede. Oh, this is one thing I want to mention before I forget. You know how Dr. Hyder in the first film, he has the Centipede for like 3 days? I'm not quite sure how many days he has the Centipede for, but like, it's at least 1 day, that's for sure. I think he has it for like 2 or 3 days. I'm not entirely sure on that. But you know how so Dr. Hyder has it for that many days. I was kind of disappointed for how long Martin has it. Not much spoilers, sure. I'm just saying how long we get to see Martin interact with the Centipede. He literally just has it for like 15 minutes or 20 minutes maybe. That's how long we get to see Martin with the Centipede. Like, this isn't even taken over the course of like, this isn't like 15 minutes taken out of like 2 days or 3 days. Like, Martin literally has the Centipede for 20 minutes odd. Roughly 20 minutes, that's how long he has it, literally. So I was kind of really disappointed. I was like expecting him to play around with the Centipede and have a lot more fun with it. But instead he just has it for like 15 or 20 minutes and I'm just kind of like, is that it? You know, I was kind of surprised by that. I was expecting him to have it for quite a long time. But you know, whatever. You know, it's still fine. And you know how in the first film, Dr. Hyder creates the Centipede like roughly halfway through the movie? For this, like, Martin creates the Centipede like in the last like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So if you're expecting a lot more Centipede action, you know, a lot more action from the Centipede, you're gonna be disappointed. The Centipede, you don't get to see it long. You know, like, I'd say it's a 90-minute film roughly. The first 60 minutes odd are Martin kidnapping the victims, and then the next 10 minutes is like the surgery, then the final 20 minutes is just him having some fun with the Centipede. And you know, that's pretty much it. And I know a lot of people, you know, you might find that boring. Like, does that sound interesting to you? Like, Martin spending 60 minutes like kidnapping people, and you know, we get a little look into his life of how he's obsessed with the film of the scrapbook and watching it over and over again, and how his mother abuses him, everyone, you know, abuses him, stuff like that. Like, and then he creates the Centipede in like the last 20 minutes. If that sounds boring to you, then there you go. Because like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because like, even once the Centipede has been created though, that's not the end of the violence. Like, Martin does some stuff with the Centipede, you know, he has some fun with it, like I said. Like, there's this one scene, he's like trying to get them all to shit, because like, that's, you know, he wants to see them all shit. And so, you know, he's waiting there for a while, trying to rub their stomachs to get them to go. He's doing that for quite a while, but then he's like, kind of gets fed up, and then he injects each person with laxatives. So then it's like mini explosions. Like, there's literally mini explosions at every single part of the Centipede, and it's like shit just sprays out at like every part of the Centipede, like through the stitches. Like, it's so over the top. I'm sure it's supposed to be funny. Like, if this sounds disgusting to you, trust me, it isn't. Like, I'm sure this is Tom Six's intentions. Like, it's the way it's just shown. I'm sure it's supposed to be really comical, because of how over the top it is. And Martin's facial expressions, they are funny, because Martin, he's just standing back, like, he's giggling, he's got his hands like that, and he's just giggling, waiting for them all, you know, for the laxatives to take effect. And then the look on his face when one of them finally do take a shit, is just like, he's like that, giggling, and then he just goes, like, the look on his face just changes within a split second. It's just like as if he's so shocked that someone actually went. Like, the look on his face is just hilarious. And like, throughout the whole entire movie, there are pretty funny parts. Like, the scene where, because at one point he gets like a toddler or baby, I'm not quite sure. He like just keeps the toddler or the baby in the front seat of his car. And it's just, so he keeps it the baby because it's like one of the victims' baby. So while he has the victim like tied up in the warehouse, he has the baby just in his van. So at this one point, he's chasing down a victim. He's shot the girl in her like leg or knee or whatever, and she's limped off. So he's chasing her, and he's like storming off like he's a man on a mission. He's like storming off like really angry. You can see in his face he's really pissed off. He's hunting her down. He's gonna get her. So he's like storming off in like this powerful march. Then all of a sudden, because like he comes to his car, he walks past his car, and the baby's in the front seat. So he's really angry, and then he just stops as soon as he sees the car, and he's just like, and then he's walking. He's really pissed off and angry. He's storming off like this powerful march. Then he just stops and smiles. His like facial expression changes instantly. He's storming off, really pissed, and he just stops, and instantly he's really happy, and he just smiles and just stares at the baby for like 5 seconds, and then he just starts storming off again, really pissed off. It's just such an odd moment, and I'm sure it's supposed to be funny, and I guess it's supposed to show how Martin's kind of feels. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of feels like the baby is kind of like the only character, or toddler, whatever. It's like the only character he kind of has a connection to, because they both, he's very childlike. So I guess, he kind of feels, he kind of understands the baby. I guess you could, try and word it like that. He kind of understands the baby or feels the connection with it. So like he storms off really angry, then he just stops, and he's really happy all of a sudden, staring at the baby for 5 seconds, and even the music stops. It's like this weird music playing, and then it just stops for like 5 seconds. Then when he storms off again, the music goes. It's just the film has a lot of moments like that, which is pretty funny and really offbeat, but I'm sure it's intentionally funny. And of course, some of the over the top gory moments, or well, over the top shitty moments, like literally shitty moments, were pretty funny as well, and I'm sure they're supposed to be. Oh yeah, by the way, this film is in black and white, however it has some brown enhancements for the footage, so take a guess where they did that, the brown enhancements. One thing I didn't really buy about the film is that Miss Yenny, I think she's called Ashley Yenny, something like that. The girl, Ashley, because like this takes place in the universe where the first Human Centipede is just the film. She, for those of you who don't know, I'm not quite sure what her name is, like Ashley Yenny. Her last name is definitely Yenny, that's for sure. But she plays the girl at the back of the Centipede for the first film. Like she's at the back of the Centipede for the first film. So for the second film, she, the actress returns playing herself. So what Martin does, he wants to have her, like he wants to have her part of the Centipede. So apparently tricking an actress or actor to come to the UK is extremely easy, and tricking them to come to where you want them to come is extremely easy apparently, because it's not really explained in the movie how Martin does it. I guess he rings them up on the phone or something, but like he because we hear the voicemail of someone's phone where like Yenny's agent, he says something like yeah, she said, the agent says something like yes, Yenny would love to be part of Quentin Tarantino's new film. So it's kind of like, what? I was like, what? Like, so apparently Martin somehow told Yenny's agent that Quentin Tarantino wants her to be part of his new film. So it's kind of like, so she thinks that she's going to audition for Quentin Tarantino's new film. So Martin, she arrives at the airport, Martin picks her up and drives her over to the warehouse, and it's just like, I didn't really buy that. It's like, how did he trick her into thinking that? Like, just because somebody rung you up and told you Quentin Tarantino would like to see you, like, why would you believe that? Like, there obviously would have to be some sort of like things, like, I don't know, documentations or some crap like that. Okay, if you notice the jump cut just by there, someone just walked downstairs and I had to go figure out who it was. But yeah, I'm back, so that's why the jump cut was there. But as I was saying, like, I didn't really buy how Martin kind of got somebody to, convinced her that she was going to be part of the new Quentin Tarantino film. It's kind of like, how did he manage to do that? So that's one thing I didn't really buy into. And another thing, he keeps like 12, I don't know, like about, you know, he keeps a bunch of like 12 people in the warehouse for ages, and all they do, they just have their arms like tied behind their backs. So it's kind of like, why don't they just like go back to back, crawl over to each other back to back, and just like free each other, and then they can just go. And they are in this warehouse for like days. It's not as if Martin is standing there watching over them. They're in this warehouse for days alone, and like none of them think to do that. So that's another thing. Is kind of like, what the hell? I don't really have much stuff to talk about here, and I kind of want to finish here because somebody just walked in downstairs. But another thing, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending, it was so offbeat, so weird, and just so abrupt. I was just like, what the hell? I was like, what the hell was that? The way this movie ends, I was not expecting it. No, like, I was like, what? The way it ends, like, what happens in the end, I was just like, what the hell just happened? It just doesn't, I'm talking about, for those of you who have seen the film, I'm not talking about because the ending, it leaves the film ends in a way where it's kind of left open to your imagination. It's kind of like, you can interpret it one way or another, so it's, whatever, you can figure out for yourself, you can decide for yourself. It ends in that way. So for those of you who have seen the film, I'm not talking about the interpretation thing, I'm talking about the mutilation. The film kind of ends on a mutilation. Something happens to a character, and I was sitting there, I was like, what? It's so, it's not, well, it's kind of ironic. I know what the actual definition for ironic is, but the word irony and ironic is used so many times this way. I just use it this way anyway. But it's so, I understand it's ironic to the character for this to happen to them. But at the same time, I was just like, what the, it's just, what? It was so random. I never expected it to happen. It's just such a weird thing to happen. Seriously, the thing that happens in the end, it caught me so off guard, and it was the last thing I was expecting to happen. I was so surprised by what happened. Seriously, if you watch the movie, you'll probably get the same reaction. I just couldn't believe what happened. And the movie, I didn't like the... I can't say this because it's kind of getting to spoilers if I tell you what I didn't like. The ending, I don't like the possibility it has opened up, because it ends in a way so it's up for you to interpret what happened. I don't like the way, the possible way they are suggesting the film went. I hope it didn't go that way, the way they suggested the film went. I hope they didn't. Like, I can't say, otherwise it's a spoiler. But I didn't like the way the film ended, in the sense that they are saying this is what might have happened, is up to you to decide. Like, I hope it's the other possibility. I'm having trouble with trying to not give spoilers here. But yeah, there you go. If you could, if you haven't seen the film, you're probably like, what are you talking about? I can't explain it, but yeah. So that's why I thought the movie. I did like it, I totally see why some people would find it boring, but personally, I did like it. I did find it entertaining. I'm definitely going to watch the uncut version when I get the opportunity to. Yeah, and I might do an update video if it's worth. Like a 2-minute update video talking about the uncut version of how graphic I thought it was. And like, compared to a film like a Serbian film, like, I haven't seen the more famous and disgusting films, which are famous for being disgusting, like August and the Grand Trilogy. I haven't seen that, but I do hear sorry, I do hear pretty promising things about it. Like that is supposed to be a pretty graphic film series, pretty disturbing. I haven't seen them. Cannibal Holocaust, that's not really graphic. I haven't seen it, but I do know about the famous scenes from it, and it's just like that doesn't even belong on the most graphics film, most disturbing films list. You know, I don't understand why that's so famous for being so gory or anything. What's that film? It's like Marty's, or I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. It's something like Marty's or Martyrs or something like that. I hear promising things from that. Haven't seen it, but if I want to compare the Human Centipede 2 to like a Serbian film, a more like modern, a more like recent film, which is well known for being gory. I hated the Serbian film. I didn't find it disgusting or gory at all, and I really hated it. Like, I just thought it was really tame, to be honest, like really boring. How they like I just really hated the Serbian film. I would definitely choose to watch the Human Centipede 2 over that any day. I just really hated the Serbian film. I don't know whether or not about which is more sicker or gorier, because I watched the cut version, so it's kind of hard to say, because I watched the uncut version of a Serbian film, and that film was pretty boring, to be honest. I thought it was pretty crap. Like, the baby scene in the Human Centipede 2 is a lot more fun than the baby scene in the Serbian film. Like, the baby scene in the Serbian film was I thought it was pretty crap. I mean, it's pretty shitty. I mean, the special effects in that scene were pretty bad. You know, the newborn porn scene is pretty. It's just like the animatronic was pretty bad. So, I didn't really find that scene too disturbing. Well, not disturbing at all. And it's kind of humorous just to think the director is constantly shouting out newborn porn while it's playing on a projector. It's just like, that scene is more humorous than anything. But also in the Human Centipede 2, you can look at it in a humorous way because of how cartoony it is. Because it happens so fast, you're like, whoa, what did that just happen? Because it happens so fast, it's kind of cartoony, a bit humorous. But yeah, if I wanted to compare the Human Centipede 2 to a more modern film, it's kind of hard to say because I haven't seen the uncut version of the Human Centipede 2, but I guess the Serbian film is more disturbing. Not that I found it disturbing, but the Human Centipede 2 is a lot more fun and a better film in general than a Serbian film. I really hated that film. But yeah, that's what I thought about the Human Centipede 2. I did enjoy it. It's pretty I thought it was a fun film. I understand why some people would find it boring. I was kind of disappointed by how little gore there was. However, you know, I did watch the cut version, so there you go. It's a well shot film. The acting is okay. It's not horrible. You know, it's fine. And yeah, the special effects were pretty cool. And the ending mutilation just, it didn't disturb me or anything. I just thought it was so random. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Human Centipede 2. Thanks for watching. And I'm just gonna quickly say, try and clear up what I mean about the ending. So, stop watching if you don't want the ending spoiled. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to do the ending. Okay, so it ends where it's possibly implying that everything that just happened was a dream. It was all in Martin's head and it's just his dream. Because like, once he's killed the centipede, he goes nuts, kills the centipede. Once he's killed the centipede, it just cuts to him. Literally, it's a shot of the centipede dead. Then the next shot is him sitting down watching the film at, you know, in his office. So it's a shot of, imagine it, is a shot of the dead centipede. Then the next shot is just him sitting there watching the Human Centipede 1 on his laptop. So, because it's so sudden and abrupt, it's kind of like, it's either, that was either all in his, you know, all in his imagination, his fantasy, it was all just a dream. It's either that, or, it's either that, or he killed it, what happened, he killed the centipede, and now he's just going back to his job. So it's those two things. So it's kind of like, I would prefer it that it did actually happen and he's just sitting there going back to his job. I would like to think that's what happened, but the thing is, as Tom 6 already revealed, none of that matters. The third film is following the pattern of having the other two films as a film. So in the Human Centipede 2, the first film was just a film. Now in the Human Centipede 3, the Human Centipede 1 and 2 are just films. So like that ending, which is open to interpretation, you're not going to get an answer to it, because the third film is going to be a film within a film. So, you know, what the ending doesn't matter anyway. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Human Centipede 2. That's my spoilers part of it. So yeah, if you watched all of the video, thanks. And yeah, see ya. Next one is probably going to be Paranormal Activity 3. And I think I'm going to hate it. We'll have to wait and see. See ya.